Well, welcome. It's an exciting time. The good news is it's pretty boring locally, which makes me feel better. But let's start with introductions as we look at the world from a conservative point of view.
Ed Bertarelli, Chairman of the Milford Republican Town Committee.
Chris Moran, member of the FinCom here in town.
Bob Burns, Hopedale Selectman and Water Sewer.
So, I mean, today I felt really good when Chairman of the FinCom sent me an email. It used to take us, what, Chris, a week to go through all the articles and vet everything. And he sent a note saying, out of everything that's been presented, so out of $100 and some odd million budget, what do we have to bring people forward on? And we said, obviously, the bus we never talked about. But there were two articles, a bathroom and an elevator. So from a local point of view, pretty boring, ironed out process.
It really is, and one of the things that as soon as you say it's a boring process, immediately you get someone from the other side yelling, why aren't we debating this and why is everything being a rubber stamp? Which I get that from people all the time. They say, I don't understand why town meeting, you know, no one talks about anything and everything's a rubber stamp. But to be honest with you, it is the exact opposite of that. We have been debating this stuff and going over this stuff repeatedly within subcommittees and with department heads for, 6 months now. So at this point in time, yes, it is quiet. It's because all the debate has happened, all the work has been done, and going through all the stuff, and me and you happen to sit on the capital project subcommittee, we've ironed out all these projects.
And that's anything but boring for the last 5 months.
And there's no question. And that's why at this point we say it is boring now because all the work's been done.
But I think the point is, though, when you have people, and this is what's happened in towns all over the state and the country, when you have people pre-chewing your food for you, which is you guys, what happens is, at the town meetings, you have certain points of view and prejudices in the best sense and bents and whatever. But when the general town meeting member, which I've been a member, 25, 28 years, we go and basically the arguments are over petty little things, and the school department and other budgets basically pass with a yawn. So the question is, when your stuff is pre-chewed for you, just like nationally or wherever else, and statewide, there's a sense of frustration. Let's get to the state budget. Okay, we say maybe things are looking good there, maybe town aid's coming in, but let's not forget in there is the impact of Obamacare and Medicaid costs and the cost of illegal immigrants and aliens in the country. It's amazing. There was a statistic that Massachusetts just last year, I guess, lost 29,000 residents to the size of, they said, say the size of a Milford, who moved out of the state.
It's almost the entire Milford town.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what they don't point out is, because the press will not do it, is the state's population in that time
overall went up.
Has gone up by 250,000, and that is largely attributed to illegals moving to the state. It's not people moving from other states to Massachusetts, because, let's be frank, you have to have your head examined unless you're coming in a high-tech industry or whatever to move here. So you look at the hidden costs of what's going to affect the state and what's going to affect all our taxpayers, which is the idea of Medicaid, the expansion of Obamacare, which has increased the Medicaid rolls incredibly. When those birds come home to roost, I think we're going to see the days of where the towns have relied on the state aid fund as a way to as a cushion are going to be over. But
there's no question. But I think also with the election of Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito, who both came from a local government,
yes,
they have a commitment to the local towns, more as looking at someone like Deval Patrick, who's always been a statewide person, and that's where most of the funding went during his administration. So you're seeing now with Governor Baker that you're seeing that towns are getting more of the focus, and obviously, us in Milford, we're benefiting from that.
And Baker works well with the, because to be blunt,
with everyone, to be honest with you.
Yes, but to be blunt, the House and the Senate have been run by the Democrats for 50, 60 years, and so the governors that have been successful, and there have been a lot of Republican governors since Weld, basically the majority of them have been Republicans, and there's been a reason for that. People like the check and balance system in government. I think people are very happy with that. Deval's 2 terms were marked by really very
Crisis.
and very failures in administration.
But Ed, at the end of the day, if you think about
Yeah.
it, every time this year, we were in a total, it was confusion. I don't know how to
do you mean
describe
this year?
it. We got to this point where we're trying to set a town budget.
Oh.
And under the Duval years, we never knew what was coming our way.
Yes.
You know, it was, is it going to swing port or starboard? We're tacking one way.
The thing that's interesting, though, is Duval did not enjoy a very good relationship with his own Democratic Senate president and Democratic speaker. He had a very interesting relationship there. And then you also had the other problem that you had a series of at least 2 House speakers who were indicted and removed. So the leadership there was, and you know, people shouldn't forget that. I think there have been 3 that have been indicted,
now
but 2
you
removed.
look
We're going to have to open up a congressional wing in the old
You
prisons.
look
now.
at Charlie, you look at Karen, you can love them or hate them, but you feel a stability.
Well, you want competence, and that's
You know,
the point. You wanted that they're
You
there.
got a confidence in
they're
them that they know what
administrators.
they're doing,
Yes.
that they're doing it for the betterment of the people.
Yep.
And, you know, yes, Charlie came in with not probably the best budget situation in the
Oh,
world.
no. $1 billion deficit
Yep.
anyway.
You
Yes.
know, and yet,
To be blunt, yeah.
I don't remember, oh my God, the sky is falling. I remember,
Because he made it work.
well, it was, this
Because he
stinks.
made it work.
Yes, this situation stinks.
And
We'll
the-
figure it out.
The thing that I admire most about the Baker-Polito administration is they're reaching out to the citizen towns. They're reaching out to the selectmen, the city councils, and they're asking for input. They're saying,
that's very good
they're
insight,
saying,
yeah.
what can we do to make your job easier? Because they know that we're the people that run the towns on a day-to-day basis. And in Boston, they may understand the situations that are going on in Boston, but they may have no idea what's going on in Milford or Hopedale or Mendon or Springfield. So they're looking for input, and they're considering that input seriously when they come up with some of their programs and some of their
And Bobby, think about, I mean, Uncle Ed was mentioning that there's still confusion. Last year, we felt good that we could put 2.8 million towards the tax rate.
Yeah.
Yet people were talking about it as if you're going to have a whopping savings. And yet a few of us got criticized saying, no, look guys, let's be honest and serious. The levy rate is going to go up 1%. That's something to be happy about because it didn't go up 2.5. But depending on the valuations, I mean, we've been fortunate that the commercial industrial is 1.5. But you know,
But I think you have to explain that, though. You're talking in a code that I'm not even familiar with.
when you look at a dollar's worth of tax that you pay on your house, if it was a business, you'd pay $1.50. So now the levy is the entire amount that the town can tax. That's everything we put taxes on. By law, we can go up 2.5% without asking for voter approval. Town meeting can say, increase your levy. So if last year you taxed $100, this year you can go 102.5.
But
Now, you divide that, and this is where people get really confused.
Whoa.
The selectmen decide, within limits, how much of that goes against commercial, how much goes against residential, how much goes against industrial. So even though the levy limit, this happened 3 years ago, when the levy limit only went up 1.5%, but since commercial values plummeted, residential went up 10%.
Exactly, because of the
okay,
difference. Yes.
But as I said to you before we were taping, you guys are inside baseball. You're on the finance committee. What the average Joe public out there wants to know is why my bill went up in plain English. And the point is that
We spent more.
realistically in the state, and this is what we've talked about before, is Massachusetts going to continue, or it's already on a disadvantage given the cost of doing business here for businesses.
Yep.
Okay, well, the same way with the cost of living here. and the cost of living here in a decent sort of way. As property taxes increase, it's fine to have every explanation in the world of why we have this panoply of services and why they have whatever, but they might be able to say, well, you know, down south things are a little cheaper and I'm going to go there. And we're seeing that in the state population where we have residents, native Massachusetts residents, you know, people born and raised here, moving out of here. And as we've seen, I think in the last 30 years, we've lost, we had 12 members of the House of Representatives. We're down to 9.
9.
So we basically lost 30% of our United States House representatives. Now, if you also add into that the fact that we have a significant number of illegal people in the state.
Well, our population's gone up and our representation's gone down.
But as I said before, and people were surprised by this, the way the feds finagle the numbers are, that illegals are counted as residents, even though they're not actors.
But Ed, the end of the day, all the fanciness, when it comes down to simple Portuguese math, why did your taxes go up? Because you spent more.
Exactly.
There's no question.
Exactly.
And the other thing that's important to understand, and just to go back to when you said about the dual tax rate, when we give back $2.8 million, do you understand that we overtax our commercial compared to our residents? When we give money back, they
get the 50% benefit.
Get
I
the
know,
extra 50% benefit as well. So when we were giving back, they get it because we're taking it from them on a higher rate as well.
But we could also argue that it wasn't anyone's money in the first place; it was the people's money.
Oh,
so
Ed, you're talking to the guys who said we're not really giving back.
No,
we took too much.
That's very sporting of people to say we're giving back something, or as a couple of selectmen said for the years, well, you're very lucky that we aren't taxing to what we should tax. No, we should be taxing to the least amount. But why don't we go on to the political? Because,
well, but I mean, I just want people to understand. Well, this is not, you know, when we say it's boring. Yes, if you came to the last subcommittee meeting for 45 minutes.
I know, but when you say you want people to understand, that implies a certain thing. The explanation is owed by the people doing the finances, not that people have to ask the questions.
Well, no,
and that's why you're trying to do that, but it's a very difficult process when you're way inside the trees.
Well, it is, but I'll be honest, and I have to disagree with you a little bit because something that we've done, I don't know, how many years ago did we start the report that we put on the chairs? How many years?
4?
Was it
5?
4? Yeah, it got to be more than that. And we have a detailed explanation.
But who is we?
What do you mean?
The Finance Committee.
Yeah, but you talk we as if it's the government.
I apologize.
Well,
the Finance Committee.
I'm being very picky tonight because you guys are in the trenches with the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee got challenged because what Chris is
well,
leading to, and it was legit,
absolutely,
where they said the selectmen came to the Finance Committee and said, you know, you get the warrant, but everything's pre-chewed. You guys have beat this to death. Why don't we get the advantage of knowing your thoughts? So, yes, and I've been criticized because I write it.
Yep, and he's the author.
We take the warrant. Yep. We take the background we were presented, and then I put in the FinCom opinion.
In plain speak, by the way.
Yeah, and it's not meant to be, hey, this is the right opinion.
But again, I want to go back to the point. We didn't elect you guys. We elected a Board of Selectmen. And what I've seen in the last 20 years in government was that the Board of Selectmen abrogated a lot of their responsibility to you guys. And it's convenient for them to do that. But I think they're starting to reclaim their purview, and I see pushback from different forces in town. But the fact is, we elect the selectmen to guide us in the financial
picture.
But Ed,
look at the way I've described the FinCom. It's the most influential, powerless people in that building.
Okay, but
we have no power. We don't even vote.
Yeah. Again, but we're talking about a very specific subject to an audience who I'm not sure
understands.
No, I wouldn't use the word understand because that's sort of like there's some sort of whatever. But I would just like to see our elected leaders be more of the leaders in this field rather than having things steered and guided for decades now as they have been. I said this board is better than past boards, but we've had boards for years where it was just, okay, you guys decide what you want to do, we'll take the credit for it, and we'll go back. So
somehow I never quite felt it was that easy.
Well,
realistically,
you're looking at it from your end. The point is, I guess
I never felt the selectmen just took whatever we said and
I
said,
know, but
"Of
I
course."
guess what it is, this is like a, okay,
Well,
well,
Bobby, you're in that role.
Yeah.
Do you just
Yeah.
accept what your FinCom says without question?
I think we should move on to the national politics.
There you go.
yeah, because
Because
this
it's
is
it's a
too
less-
inside baseball.
It's a less pugnacious topic.
Yeah, but it's also just too
Less
inside
pugnacious.
baseball. Yeah. No, I don't think
Donald
so.
Trump.
Yeah.
Could that be
Yeah.
possible of a description?
Oh, my goodness. Well, you figure what?
Here we go, Bobby. You start her
Why don't
off.
you start?
What the heck is going on?
Well, you know what? I look at the situation with the national politics and I say, at the first Republican debate, they asked everyone to raise their hand if they would back the ultimate nominee for the Republican Party. Everyone raised their hand with the exception of Donald Trump.
No, he said if he was the nominee, he would back it.
No, he.
No,
But
back
he-
whoever the nominee
Right,
was.
But it was whoever.
I like
the
that,
nominee.
yes.
Then the second debate, and there was a big brouhaha about that. Now, the second debate, they asked the same question. And everyone, including Donald Trump, raised his hand. Now, isn't it shocking that now that it appears as though he is ultimately going to be the nominee, the Republican Party, established Republican Party, is not going to stand behind him. So if he had asked the question, well, let me ask the establishment Republicans out here, if I am the nominee, how many will back me? Would they all have raised their hand?
But wait a minute. Now, let's just call the ball here for a second. Let's say he gets the required number of delegates,
At the convention, yeah.
right? Are you really going to sit there and say, no?
Well, that's why they're not even just saying that they're not going to back the nominee. They are outright trying to sabotage. I mean, there's a complete difference besides saying that you will and will not back him if he gets it. You are outright trying to make sure he doesn't achieve it. That's a whole nother.
There's a war on Trump.
There's a whole.
with
That's
the
a whole other
established
situation.
Republicans.
There's no
Let's
question.
look at it a slightly different way and look at both parties for a minute. And then we can get in. Let's stay with the Republicans, but just look at it in a minute. There's a profound thing going on that in each party you have the Trump forces and somewhat the Cruz forces in there too, because he's sort of he was a non-establishment conservative. And you have on the Democratic side the Bernie Sanders phenomenon. So you have two polar opposite, supposedly, but they're expressing real deep dissatisfaction with the way things are going. You look at the Democrats for a minute. Hillary certainly has rigged the nomination process, the number of debates and whatever were very clearly rigged, and their 500 superdelegates.
Superdelegates,
the superdelegates
Yes,
alone
that
tell me.
situation.
The Republicans do not have that, by the
No,
way.
I understand
Oh,
that,
no,
but
I mean,
that
but
alone
I just
tells
want
me we got the ace of
No,
Trump
but
in
I
our
just want
pocket.
the audience
But
to
he
know
wants
that
everybody to
people,
know that,
people
yeah.
criticize the Republican Party for issues, but we don't have superdelegates. Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito will have to run and be elected by the Republican State Committee if they want to be delegates.
Just like Ed Bertarelli,
Exactly. Now, the 500 delegates that that the superdelegates are there, but the question is, she's manipulated the process pretty well. Bernie's he's come in close second in a number of states, but the thing there is, she covers over a phenomenal personal weakness as a candidate, and the possibility that she might be indicted for the email scandals. That's a possibility. But so you have that side on that side where you have a person moving toward the nomination but a flawed candidate. Okay? Now on the Republican side you have, I guess you'd say it's sort of been musical chairs, because when you had 16 candidates, there should have been 10.
Yeah.
When you had 10 candidates, there should have been 6. When you had 6, there should have been 2 or 3. I told the guys out before we started that it's been estimated that the Republicans have spent, the losing Republican candidates, not Trump, Cruz, or Kasich, the losing candidates have spent $520 million.
Bush spent over $100 million.
No, all the losing candidates have spent $520
Combined.
million raised and spent, and the vast majority of that has been attacking fellow Republicans.
Yes.
Not Hillary and not Bernie.
They violated the Reagan.
Well, they've done it because the Supreme Court rulings have allowed super PACs, and you had, for example, the Bush super PAC with 90 or 95 million. In New Hampshire, they ran ads against Kasich, which is sort of like running an ad against Bambi. In South Carolina, I mean, a decent man who did town meetings all over the state, they ran ads about he was in favor of this or that or the other thing. In South Carolina, my friends down there were getting robocalls from the Rise America PAC that Bush funded on how Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and whatever were the spawn of Satan, basically. Then you had other groups running ads against Rubio here, and then you had what Chris Christie did, that disgraceful performance in New Hampshire, attacking a candidate and then basically pulling out. So, you know, as a guy who's been doing this for a long time, I guess I'm saying it a little more dramatically than Bob did, is you just have sort of a disgust at the whole process.
Last year we got together, I said, my biggest nightmare is in November I walk in and I have a choice between a liar and a buffoon.
Yeah.
And I'm dead scared that it's coming true.
But I think Trump has shown a masterful understanding, and he's also played the American media, which is the most superficial, non-issue oriented media in the world, including the liberal media that loathe Trump. But he's captivated them
because what, $11 million?
He's a showman. He knows exactly how to come out.
But he's on the news.
Absolutely.
That's my point.
Every night.
And that's why you're actually getting some coverage from the liberal media, because they love him. It's like Barnum and Bailey circus.
They love
every
him
time
till he's a nominee.
There's no question, and they will turn on a dime on it. But still, he gets ratings, which to them is money, and that's why he's getting the coverage, and that's why he's leading.
What's your take on these, what does it call them, disruptors?
Well, I believe that half of them are hired by Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and the other half are hired by Donald Trump.
Do they have the right to go in and try and disrupt?
It's clear that the answer is no.
No.
See, I have a fundamental problem. I mean, that pesky First Amendment, I don't like skinheads. Yeah, but they have the right to go to North Dakota, get together.
Excuse me. But in this particular case, the First Amendment doesn't apply in a rally like that, because it's one thing to protest.
Why doesn't it apply? Why doesn't Trump have the right to have his people there and listen to them?
What do you mean listen to who? The protesters?
Trump is having a rally.
Yes.
Why should anybody have the right to go into his rally and try and disrupt it?
That's what I said. They don't.
To me,
because it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater.
But I mean, it's like when you talk about the Nazis, the skinheads, I may detest what they stand for, but if they want to be in Idaho and all, I'm just not going to go there. You know what I mean? My problem is
Michaelis.
You can, that'd be scary, Eddie being Michaelis.
Between your legs.
If I sit there and think about it, they have the right to ignore him. You know, if you don't believe Trump, or if you're anti-Trump, just don't go there.
You know, but the clear thing is that this is, you see, let's segue what you're saying about the showmanship. It's pretty clear that these groups, the disruptors, and let's be clear, we've been a little jumbled here. People have a right to stand at a Democratic or Republican convention, a designated area.
You can stand outside.
No, wait a minute, and protest.
Yes.
Okay. Correct. That's a right. The right is not to come in and provoke and incite violence or incite disrupt in a public event.
You can't use your First Amendment right to stop mine. If I want to be in a room listening to Bob Burns pontificate, I have the right. You can't stop me.
Well, but the question,
and that's my problem.
Yes, but the question
especially if I've paid for the room.
Yes, but the question is that what's happened is not unusual, and we've ignored it as Americans, is that in most of the elite colleges and universities in the country, conservative speakers cannot speak because their events are disrupted, trashed, and there's violence at them. So a lot of these kids are coming from colleges and universities where they have no respect for the First Amendment, because at Yale and other schools, they brought conservative speakers, and they've had to cancel the rally because 200 or 300 people will come in.
And with the
support of the same thing happened to Bernie.
and with the
No, but let's just no, but let's
the
just
support of the college, the president
let's
of the
just
college.
say this though. The thing is, these aren't people who are nebulous political. They are either anarchist or far leftist who do not believe in the First Amendment, don't even believe in the Constitution. And what I'm saying is, a lot of us aren't realizing that some of our taxpayer money and some of the elite schools' money is being spent at colleges and universities
Ed,
where this happens.
Wouldn't you feel the same way if a bunch of skinheads went into Bernie Sanders rallies and try and disrupt him?
Well, we
from
haven't
speaking?
seen that, have we?
No, but if it did,
No.
wouldn't you feel the same way? I would.
How about Hillary?
Or
rallies?
Hillary. It doesn't matter.
Have we seen any type of disruption in any of the Hillary rallies?
No, but Bob, my point is,
No.
if far-right crazies, you're talking about far-left crazies.
Well,
but if far-right
I'm waiting for the far. So far, we've always heard that there are far-right crazies out there, but so far, this last year, I've basically seen thousands of these far-left people who I wonder where they work, what they do. I certainly am deeply frightened of what they believe because they seem to be coming in, and whether it's Donald Trump or whoever, I've seen it at our convention. I've seen it. Now, I've been to 3 Republican conventions. The one in New York was very scary because they had brought in radical leftists and other people, and we were leaving the convention one night, and we were going to a party, and we inadvertently wandered into a zone that New York City had designated as a protester zone. But we didn't know that till this group of people walked up the street, and we were walking with a female delegate from Georgia and a female delegate from South Carolina and ourselves and a couple of friends. And these group of people walked up, and 2 of the people spit in the girls' faces. And at that point, one of the South Carolinian guys cold-cocked one of the guys who had spit in their face. At that point, the police they were going by in vans, and they stopped. They arrested those people, and they said, guys, get in the car. You're in the protester zone. They given a whole section of the Chelsea part below Madison Square Garden to protesters. So you realize when you're a Republican in some of these events, you've got to be very careful. Now, the cops took us down into our party and whatever and said, by the way, and we didn't quite realize it because we wanted to walk down 7th Avenue. I mean, it's a particular story, but it just shows you what some of these loony bins will do.
But we're seeing it much different now because what we're seeing is not the protests outside. We're seeing them inside.
Yes.
And to me, some of the things that I really find that the fact that it's on television and they're interviewing these people are now seeing this on TV, and it's almost like when someone murders someone, they don't put their picture on it, mass murders. You don't want to publicize it.
CNN
right now,
did an interview with one of these
they're interviewing them like these people are celebrities.
When we grew up,
Well, they're starting.
everybody wanted to streak a baseball game.
Exactly.
And then the TV said, we're going to go look over here.
Exactly.
And guess what? I don't remember the last time I saw a streaker on TV.
There's no question.
Last
But these
time you
people
did
now
it.
that scream out at a Trump rally or whoever, and they're on interviews, they're on CNN, and they're on this, and MSNBC.
But to go back to what Bob said at the beginning, that the insightful thing is that first debate. So now that Trump is moving to a thing, you've seen this gigantic amount of money spent against candidates, the losing candidates, but a lot of it against Trump. But the amazing thing is the miscalculation of Hillary, Bernie, and all the Republicans, and the Republican elite to Donald Trump, because every time he's been attacked, when the Pope supposedly made a remark about him, he came out on top because because the fact is that even American Catholics felt they don't want the Pope talking about American politics. Other people have laid into him, and he's
So
basically...
Eddie, where's it going?
Well...
Where are we going to end up, boys?
They're gonna push him into the White House.
Yeah.
They're going to
Well-
the elites, the protesters, and all the antis are going to push him into the
So you
presidential
think Trump
nomination.
gets the Republican nomination?
The way it looks right now, it looks like he's the one
Odds
that's going
are,
to get it.
Yes.
What
I
happened?
would have never
They-
put...
they-
never,
I don't
if
think
we were
it-
sitting here... Remember, we said,
I
it
think
was a fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a roller coaster
to
ride.
me, you brought up,
I
I think
thought
the
Cruz.
biggest point is the fact that with as many people as it started, that's the reason why he's going to get the nomination.
Yeah.
Because it came too late to the party to say let's throw Trump out. Because they, like Eddie said, we started out at 16 people. So if we had been earlier in the process without as many delegates being sponsored,
you can win with 35% of the vote when you have 15 candidates.
That's exactly right.
The other thing is, realistically, you hit on a fundamental. You said something profound. Americans don't like people to tell them how to think.
No.
That's right.
So the more people that say, Bob, don't do this, the more American spirit.
Well, what do we say at the end of the last show when you sort of asked the audience rhetorically, why is no other candidate, well, we know why the Democrats don't say it, but why is no other candidate other saying make America great again?
I was just going to say that line.
No Republican picked up, because they're paid advisors who basically are in a cocoon and kept them. You notice even when they were all attacking Trump, none of the people to debate were going after the other candidates. I mean, Ted Cruz had a shining moment when he talked about the media basically being the largest paid PAC for the Democrats. But
Ted Cruz, every time I see him, I feel creeped out.
Yeah.
You should.
I don't know why. He's just creepy. It's like that Burger King thing.
Yeah, but that's
I don't know. It's just the way he talks. He just doesn't make me feel like.
It's the way like I feel if I want to hear Hillary.
Well, yeah, but
What about the pantsuit?
oh God, stop.
But the only
Listen.
reason that Ted Cruz is
we'll
in the
get into that
position
in a
he's in is because Trump is the only other candidate.
Right.
If there was anybody else, Cruz would have been long gone. The only reason that he's sticking around is because he's courting the evangelicals, those conservatives. That's the only reason, and they have no other alternative. And they have Trump.
But he is also an outsider, a political outsider.
Yes, he is. He is.
Both he and Trump
because
are
none of his
political
coworkers want to talk to him.
No,
That's
but
why he's
but
an
it
outsider.
doesn't matter.
The two most successful people in the Republican Party have
the
been
outsiders.
Donald, who's totally, and it's funny because some Republicans go, and I maybe should say this because I've been in a half a century, but I don't say it, is, oh, well, he's not our kind of Republican, I guess, whatever that means. But Cruz was here.
But that's kept him alive.
Yes, but here are the two people, the strongest candidates for the Republicans have, a semi-outsider and a total outsider, and all the inside people have gone.
Yep.
And
So now shift over to the other color.
Well,
number one, how is Hillary not indicted?
well, the move.
I mean, we got a general that did less and got
the FBI
hung.
director is sending signals, but apparently, from what I've heard, the Obama administration, needless to say, is stonewalling on it. And what I would expect you're going to see soon is from the Hillary smear machine, which they operate perfectly, is you're going to start hearing slanders and libels about Comey, the FBI director. I mean, remember, David Petraeus was cashiered for doing a lot less than
That's
Hillary
what I'm saying.
did.
Hey, after the
general.
After the comment Bill made about the last legacy of the Obama administration, Obama may let the dogs loose on him now.
But the Democrats, we've always said this, we should never lose thing. They want power.
Yeah, and they do stick together.
Yep.
And power is more important than ideology. Republicans fracture over things.
That's
the
the thing.
same way in the
So
state.
what happens to Uncle Bernie?
Well,
I hate to
They're
say
one
it, but
third party.
this is a guy who just strikes me as a pretty honest,
Honest socialist.
He's a
an honest socialist. I don't like what he stands for a lot of times, but I'll give him integrity.
had
But
a
he's
job.
never had a job in his life.
yeah. And by the way, honeymooned in Russia. Okay, let's get real.
Yeah.
Now, when you think of the legion of countries, of regimes that murdered their citizens, you have Hitler, you have communist China.
Uncle Joe wasn't too far
and
behind.
then you have probably the man who murdered the most of his own people,
Yep.
Joe Stalin.
I say Uncle Joe wasn't too far behind.
Millions and millions and millions. Starvation, whatever.
But
and Bernie
you
went there for his
imagine-
honeymoon.
It was the Poconos or Moscow.
If Ronald Reagan was alive today, and you tried to explain to him that a socialist was running for president and getting traction,
But again, the reason
He's an outsider.
but the reason she's
he's a senator.
yes, boy,
But he-
yes. But the reason he is getting traction, and the reason that Trump got traction, is that there was no substantial candidate from either party. Hillary was flawed at the beginning.
You're absolutely right.
She did sort of what a lot of Republicans do. When Bob Dole lost the first time we nominated him, she basically got her pantsuit cleaned by Obama in the first election, and then she took a job in the administration where she became basically his failed Secretary of State. So now it's her shot. If there are any other, I mean, even the musings that Joe Biden might run set people go, oh, please, please, Joe Biden, which is scary. So no.
Is it more scary than Hillary?
Well, again,
I don't think so.
But on the scale of things, if a real substantial candidate had come forward on either side,
Yeah.
Jeb Bush appeared to be that on the Republican side, but the name and the
Rand
timing was
Paul
wrong.
appeared to be that.
Well, no.
Even
I
Kasich,
meant
you know?
no, but again, that's ideology.
Yep.
Yeah.
You mean you need a
He's talking about an
candidate.
insider.
Yeah.
Well,
He's talking about a member of the elite. What you're
not
seeing
an
now,
elite, but
what you're seeing now is that they're making it clear
yes.
that the people do not elect the candidate. That the party decides.
Both parties.
Yes.
Both parties decide who the
Well,
candidate's
wait a
going to
minute
be.
now, Bobby. On the
they
Republican
dangle it
side,
in front
I
of your
sit there
face.
and say, I don't buy that.
You don't?
The people
Oh,
are not
absolutely.
going with the mainstay Republican.
but he's just
No.
saying.
What
what
I'm
they're
saying
trying-
is,
That's exactly
what
what
I'm
he's saying.
saying is, the insiders are now they're trying to
We'll take it to
scuttle.
Oh,
convention.
okay, yeah.
They're trying
We'll
to
take it
On
at
the
the
Republican-
convention.
Yeah,
but
they-
on the Democrat side, with
Superdelegates.
these superdelegates,
Same thing.
Well, it's
you
the
sit
same.
there and say, wait a minute.
It's the same thing, you know.
you got
It's,
it rigged
Yeah.
already.
you got a red
for
car or a
whoever we
blue
want.
car.
Well, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chairman of the Democratic Party, who does not present a very good image of the party in her speeches, but at first limited the debates, okay, and then she basically they did these 500-something superdelegates. So in a state like New Hampshire, Bernie can win the state overwhelmingly, but Hillary got the most delegates.
Yes.
So go figure, because you know any self-respecting elected Democrat congressman or senator is not going to buck Hillary
Wait a
Clinton.
minute. That's like taking a Milford election saying the
Yes.
selectmen are going to vote the first 800 votes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys go have a fair election, but the selectmen get
Yeah.
Well, what
800
it
out of the
means, what it means is
2,300.
if New Hampshire had 21 delegates, elected delegates, and had 6 superdelegates, so that's what, 27, she got all the superdelegates, and he got most of the elected delegates, but still she got more.
Right.
Yeah, of course, yeah, exactly.
They
It'd be like having multiple voting where if you were a property owner, you got 2 votes. If you didn't own property,
Right.
you got 1. or
Yeah, and that's
whatever.
why it even gets confusing on these caucuses, where if a candidate doesn't get 50%, then you can divide.
Yeah,
it.
like
It's
Utah coming up.
Exactly,
It's
Utah.
proportional unless you get 51%, then it's winner take all.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is very confusing.
But the
It feels like that game with the
But by
P.
the
There's no
Republicans put something interesting in. It worked and can probably work in a state like Utah where the educational level is pretty high. The Republican caucus is entirely online.
yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, you're identified and you're in the database as a Republican qualified. You vote online. There's no
Isn't this the
voting
first time they've done that?
there. Yes.
Yes.
There's no hiding the vote there.
No.
Yeah.
Now in like a state like I believe Washington or Oregon, they have mail-in voting, which is you have to ship the ballot in, which you can imagine what.
Yeah.
I think the first election they tried, they had 800 or 900 dead people had voted, and they weren't recently dead; they were dead for a while. So.
But the Social Security checks are probably
So
still
where do you
coming.
think it ends? A Hillary versus Donald?
Yes.
Yep.
And where does it go from there?
Well, my concern, I guess.
Assuming Hillary's not in jail.
Well, that's a big if.
Yeah.
That's a big if. My concern is, I guess.
Governor Curley got elected from jail.
Yeah. Well, what is the joke that the Bill tried to cheer Hillary Clinton up and said, honey, you just got to realize Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in jail before he got elected president of South Africa, and she's even more despondent after that. The thing I guess I worry as a, and I'm not saying an established Republican, but as a member of the party.
If you're not established Republican,
Well, no,
I'm
I
young,
meant
thin, and have hair.
establishment. Is a lot more going on than president. And there's the U.S. Senate and the House of
And
Representatives.
wait a minute. Let's talk about something that, to me, is more troublesome than anything.
Yeah.
Supreme Court.
Okay, well, let's get to that in a minute. So here you are. You have Donald Trump as the nominee, and you have Hillary as the nominee. Okay. Now, we have the Republicans, unfortunately for them, have, I think, 20 Senate seats up, and the Democrats have 6. The cycles work in different, because when you're successful in one 6-year cycle, 6 years later,
you're at risk in the next.
Yes. So you have to think that, yes, there may be people who may come to vote for Donald Trump, okay, hopefully, if he's the nominee. There may be a lot of Republicans who don't come to vote, period, okay? Hopefully, if they do come to vote and they can't vote for Trump, they vote for the rest of the ticket. I say that as a Republican who wants representatives and senators in. On the Democratic side, there might be a lot less of that. The Bernie supporters may not show up, but the question is, we have a real problem on the Republican side, is that this may really hurt the, and I don't call it the lower part of the ticket, because to me they're more important in a way than the president, the Senate and the House of Representatives. So if you're in a vulnerable race, and some people say, hey, I'm going on vacation, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, I'm not going to vote, period.
You're seeing a lot of money go to those lower races now, because they're starting to
but the problem is
if you can't vote for Trump,
they can't turn him out.
Please vote anyway.
Well, that's why I think they're focusing a lot on the lower ticket as well.
That's why I think that's why you may see, I'll throw this little wrench in, you may see if someone does it, they may run as a Republican. So it would still mean the election, because I don't see a lot of those people voting for Trump anyway. You may see it as obviously electing Hillary, because she would be, if she weren't indicted here. But the fact is that people would come out to vote against Trump, vote against Hillary, and still vote for the ticket. I mean, I know it's a little complicated.
Do I feel bad? I mean, I see the Republicans doing exactly to Obama what the Democrats did when there was an open...
When President Bush, yes.
But it's the same thing.
The Supreme Court, Jimmy.
Supreme Court. Yes. Candidly, they both stink.
It's called the Biden rule.
Yeah, well, they're throwing that up because they're saying, hey, guys,
Joe Biden
crazy enough to say it. So.
Joe Biden came up with it. Well,
and it's funny, because if you look at the old tapes, if you close your eyes, it's exactly the words the Democrats are using now. No, but that's what I'm saying.
But
I don't feel bad.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm surprised is that the liberals had already pilloried the Republicans. They had it all set up. Then a little surprise occurred. Joe Biden's remarks came forward, and now they had to backtrack, because they had the attack plan all set. But their own vice president and senator for 40 years basically outlined the same thing before. So now the wolves are exposed.
But for that matter, so did Obama.
Yeah,
Obama did the same.
He voted for the filibuster.
He outlined the same thing.
And you sit there and say, I mean, we just went through it, Chris, on one article where it's supposed to wait till fall, and we said you can't move it to spring unless I open it up to everybody, because fair's fair. The Democrats did it. The Republicans are doing it.
Well,
are there really any difference between what each of them did?
No, but it's called when you have political power, which the Republicans have in the Senate, you'd be foolish to give it up. Because remember, there was an inviolate rule, the filibuster rule, where you had to get 60 votes to break a filibuster.
Right.
Harry Reid, who probably will go down as one of the worst majority leaders in history, and from a lot of points of view, was a Democratic majority leader, broke that rule. When Mitch McConnell came in, he reinstituted it. Now, I think it's silly, because we're giving up, an ease of enacting legislation. But let's also call this what it is. You can bet your booty that if the Republicans had not started to make noises about not proposing, Barack Obama would have nominated a leftist.
Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead, he nominated a solid mint, moderate to slightly liberal justice.
Anti-gun.
Absolutely.
Anti-gun.
And anti-gun.
Think about it, guys. It's just a little bit to the left.
What do you mean?
No, he's not just a little.
No, but public opinion.
But again,
just a little.
My question was if the Republicans had been willing to roll over, we would have had Liz Warren on the Senate.
Yeah, that's
on the
exactly
Supreme
right.
Court.
Absolutely.
At least we would have had an American Indian represented.
Can you blame them?
Absolutely not.
Native,
And don't blame the Republicans for what they're doing.
A faux Native American right on the Supreme Court?
Liz Warren, absolutely, yes.
But you know,
That
think
comment.
about it. If we had
Yeah.
a solid conservative Republican president, what would you expect the nomination to look like?
A solid conservative
Right.
Republican.
So I mean, I'm
nominee.
sorry. I
Well,
look at this and I laugh.
Do you remember what they put Clarence Thomas through?
Oh.
Yes.
And if the Republicans had ever dared do that to an African-American gentleman from Holy Cross, you would have heard charges of the KKK, of the Night Riders, of lynchings or whatever. But what they did was a sophisticated one. But it's very interesting. On that panel, there was one member sitting there, and that was Ted Kennedy. And do you know he didn't say a word during those hearings? Because when they started bringing up harassment and everything else,
hello.
what could he say?
They thought
Really?
they he thought they were talking to him.
Well, I mean, come on.
How much
First
time
of
do we have,
all,
by the way?
we got plenty.
Oh, good.
First of all, you're talking about a boy from my school.
Who's that?
Ted Kennedy?
Are you talking
So we're
about-
going to go with Ted?
Wrong answer.
Are you talking about the NCAA tournament making Holy Cross?
Yes.
You went
We
to,
made it.
You went to Harvard? I didn't know that.
No.
Okay, yeah.
The man was purple. So that hits way too close to
Yes,
home,
yes.
what they did to him. But
Yes.
I guess when I listen to the Democrats crying foul,
Yeah, yeah.
I laugh.
Yeah, of course.
The same way I laugh
Everyone should laugh.
when Bush was there
But-
and the Republicans
I know,
were crying foul.
but if,
They're reading the same
but
book.
as I just said, if the Republicans hadn't researched and dug up Joe Biden's comments, the media wouldn't have even, they wouldn't have
And
done
that crying
whatever.
foul goes from the presidential to state, even down to our local.
And you know what I don't understand, and for the life of me I can't figure it out. I watched Trump come out, and you remember the first time we talked about Trump, I said I think Trump's doing this for sport.
Yeah.
I think Trump's going to drop out. Now I watch him, and
Yes, you
and
did.
every debate and every day I watch Trump, and he keeps picking up momentum, and he keeps picking up momentum, and he gets attacked more, and more people pile on him. And I'm saying, if I saw somebody with my position is whenever I enter into some situation, I always look for somebody that did it before me. And I talk to them and I say, how did you do it? And they tell me how they did it, and then I do it the way they did it, because I don't like to reinvent the wheel.
Yes.
So now you have Donald Trump that's becoming successful, and he's rolling this whole thing, and he's getting closer and closer to the nomination. So instead of studying what is working for Donald Trump and applying it to some of the other candidates, they go contrary to that. So Trump becomes even more Trump and more outstanding.
Well, you know what hit me? I heard Trump's statement, and for once I'm in 100% agreement with this man about, okay, if I'm flying the plane, I'm the president of the United States, and I'm going to Cuba, and I say, who's going to meet me? Nobody. Turn the plane around.
Yes.
And I sit there and say, now wait a minute. I heard our president, our illustrious leader, saying, this is the right time for change.
Oh, okay.
And the only time I can think of is in a few months I'm gone.
Yes.
What?
The bill won't come home. He'll be gone.
But see, Ed, the problem I have is I'm sitting there saying, to whose advantage is this trip?
Okay.
Is it going to help the U.S.?
Let me just go back a minute before we get to Cuba. Bob and I are old enough to remember this. You guys were younger. But in 1976, which sees ancient history, we had a Donald Trump type moment in the Republican Party. And that was this. Jerry Ford was the incumbent president. Nixon had resigned. Ford was the president, and it was a very fragile time, okay? Ronald Reagan challenged Gerald Ford for the nomination for president from the conservative side of the party, which was a minority since the Goldwater days. Reagan, governor of California, you got to a convention, I think it was 100-vote difference, a sitting president, non-elected, and Ronald Reagan. That was the first time you had a party sort of thing like that. Now, Reagan took a lot of body blows for it. They made him out to be a fool, an idiot, which the liberal media continued to do forever. And then in 1980, okay, we see what happens. And the Republican Party since became sort of the party of Reagan. But it was a reinventing, reinvigorating thing. I haven't seen the Democrats do that. They sort of did it with Obama, but it was a pretty, in a way.
That was a promise.
Yes, but what I meant was, you talk about when Bob was talking before about outsiders coming in and whatever. The first time it happened in our party was 1976, and the result was, I would regard one of the greatest men to sit in the presidency in recent memory. I'll never forget his speech the night of the Challenger disaster, when the rocket blew up, and he ended it with, "Now they're touching the face of God."
Yep.
That was a president in the Oval Office who could say
That
with
was-
words
that
that heal a nation.
That was a leader.
Yes.
That was
Now-
a man who knew his limitations. What I admired the most about Reagan, not what he knew,
His
but the
modesty.
fact he knew his limitations. He surrounded himself
Yes.
with very smart experts, and he listened.
Yes.
But he was also a modest man. And if you hear everything about him, for all his successes and all his, and whatever, he was
If
a
you admire
modest
that,
person.
how can you talk about
I was
a
just gonna
man
say-
as modest as Trump?
He is you're talking about the exact polar opposite situation where how we admire how Reagan was smart enough to know, you know what, I should not be surrounded by the smartest.
But
I should
now-
be the dumbest person
now
in the room.
I'm the
I
conductor.
want that.
You're
Now-
the symphony.
But I think
So the exact opposite now. So we have Trump in there, and they ask him questions like, well, who is your best foreign affairs advisor? And he goes,
Me.
Yeah.
But see, I think that's his shtick, because Donald Trump has
gives-
several businesses that he owns, and he doesn't know how to run these businesses.
Well, I'll tell
he
you,
doesn't know how to run.
Bobby,
he
run
makes
this was the
offhand
first
comments.
time
Yes.
Yeah.
that I could sit there and say, I'm listening to an action when he said, turn the plane
Yes.
around.
But-
that makes me feel better.
Let's segue into Obama this way. Obama, it's hard to imagine anyone you could disagree with more, given his snideness when he's challenged at press conferences, his
especially now in his second term.
his failure to deign to call things Islamic terrorists because he's above it all, his remarks in Cuba that we could learn about human rights from a communist country that has thousands of its people in jail. But you know what he also said, which is important? He said, which is totally wrong, he said, well, I don't think my presidency has caused the rise of Donald Trump. Precisely, it has. And just this event in Cuba shows that people are so irate as to having a president like we have,
But Ed,
it's scary.
Do you know that
Amazing.
that Michelle Obama's dress that she wore off the plane cost 23 times the average yearly wage in
Bobby,
Cuba.
Bob, wait a minute. Take a step back before we play statistics. What are we gaining? I'm trying to understand.
Cigars.
We get those anyway.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
go to London, they take the wrappers off. I get my cigars. Sorry.
Really?
Yes.
Well, he's
They
basically
mail you the wrappers.
That's
You-
right. You can put them back in.
They put them in a Honduran box.
Yes.
No.
Allegedly.
What
Some of
are
us
we
can afford
gaining?
Cuban
Allegedly.
cigars. But again, look at. Let's just forget about the whole country of Cuba for 1 minute and talk about Guantanamo, which he's made a mission to try and close. But in addition, he's released people who are actively involved now.
Has he really?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Yes.
I just have this feeling that
yes.
he's trying, but
No.
he
has.
hasn't put
The
everything.
5 he gave up for Bergdahl were 5.
Well, no, he's emptied it,
Yeah,
but
but-
he keeps talking about he
But where did
closed
they,
Gitmo.
where did they
These
go
are
to
the-
sell Girl Scout
Well, of course,
cookies?
they're right back on the front line.
Yeah,
What
that's
do you
what I'm talking
expect?
about.
They're in
That's
Belgium
what-
right now.
Who knows if
Yeah.
they're in Belgium today? We
Yeah.
don't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, he thinks this is a game, I guess.
I mean, I'll give
My
Trump
goodness.
credit where they
Well.
talked about Belgium, and he point blank said, "Do what you have to."
yes.
Yep.
You know what?
I can't feel sorry for an animal that blew up little kids on a train.
I want to get your reaction to the whole point of Obama actually saying that I don't think my presidency is one of the reasons of the rise of Donald Trump. I think it clearly is.
I think absolutely.
Exactly.
Trump and Sanders.
I don't think me getting older is the reason I lose my hair.
Yeah.
But to your point, you're exactly right.
I can sit here like I've always said. I'm young, thin, and have hair.
You
I
must
look
have
in
a
the
magic
mirror.
You have a
yeah,
magic
it's still
mirror?
a fat old bald man looking back at me.
Yeah.
I can say what I want, but the only reason in my mind that the anti-establishment candidates
is Obama.
Is because people are tired of 8 years.
That's right.
There's no
Exactly.
question. And I think people are looking for someone to lead, like you said. They're looking for someone like the day Reagan gets into office and all of a sudden the hostages get released. They're looking for someone that they know is going to be firm on a decision. You're right. Trump would have knocked on that door on the cockpit and said, you know what? Turn around, we're going home.
The other question is this, since Putin had his number, any world leader knows you can basically bully this guy.
No question.
And the question is when he's in Cuba, he gives a speech where the quote was, "We could learn a lot from human rights from Cuba." Where is he coming from?
And North Korea shot off five rockets.
Yep. Iran, we just signed a deal with them that was very controversial, and they've already broken it with missile testing. Has he done anything about it?
No, but by the way, we're going to give him all the money to buy
exactly.
But to me, it's almost like Obama is purposely thumbing his nose at all the ideals that we used to have as Americans because he feels they're antiquated or passé or he's superior to them. That's my view.
But Ed, I'll give the guy credit. He came in under a premise of wealth redistribution. And I think he's been very consistent. Everything he's done has been about wealth redistribution.
But and he is.
I have no comment to that.
It certainly hasn't helped a lot of his constituents.
I'm not saying it's helped anybody.
And by the way,
I'm not saying I agree
with
it.
But
let's get to the arguable point that in electing a first biracial president who says he's a black president, he can self-declare as he wants, is that race relations have probably never been worse in this country.
Couldn't agree more.
That's an abject failure on his part.
I'm sorry, I don't care if he's black, white, green, or yellow. His policies don't work.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it's because...
We didn't say that. No one's saying that.
But you bring it up. The minute you bring it up, people think it. Sorry. I don't disagree with him because of who he is. I disagree with him because what he does.
But he could have been a uniter.
He's used that before, and no person who is arguing would talk about that. You would expect that a president who's African American would make it a goal to improve race relations and improve the society in the integration of the country.
And I'm going to end with saying I would expect that a leader, regardless, should do that.
Well,
and I don't care where they came from or who they are. The Reagans of the world.
But it hasn't happened.
The man with the beard and the tall hat.
Yeah, but has it happened? No.
I'm not saying he did it.
Why is it that if a white person disagrees with Obama, he's racist, but if Black Lives Matter disagree with Trump, they're enlightened?
On that, I'm going to say thank you to our 6 loyal viewers. Because our time is up.
7.
We knew this would be a fun ride, and I'm sure in about 60, 90 days when we do it again, it'll be another fun ride, and there'll be another whole set of circumstances. We'll end tonight by saying, please, whatever faith, Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, in your own way, say a prayer for many, many innocent women, children, and Belgians that were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Our hearts go out to these people. I hope everybody will have a little compassion and say one little extra prayer. Thank you for joining us. May God bless, and may tomorrow be a better night. And hopefully you'll tune in 60 days when we go through round 2. Thanks.
Too long since time.